Blocked my friend who violated my privacy at her clinic job after she sent my health info to her snooping boyfriend. I'm 23F, and just recently, I had to make the painful choice to block Alice, my friend of 10 years. I know it sounds extreme, but after what she did, I couldn't just let it slide. Alice and I go way back, but the person she is with her boyfriend now isn't someone I recognize anymore. Everything started falling apart when I found out Alice used her work computer, yes, at her job at a doctor's clinic, to look up my health insurance information without my consent. But it doesn't end there. She actually took a photo of it, and sent it to me through messages. Messages her boyfriend of a year can, and often does, read anytime he wants because he uses her laptop for everything. She knows this, but doesn't seem to care. It gets even more twisted. From my view, her boyfriend isn't just a bad influence, he's a parasite. Alice has spent thousands on this guy, including buying a motorcycle that got impounded because he couldn't be bothered to get a license, or even a permit. He uses her credit card to buy drugs, he's driven her car while trashed, and he's basically made himself at home in every aspect of her life, even using her laptop to keep tabs on all her private conversations. It feels like he's trying to keep her to himself by isolating her from everyone and, unfortunately, it's starting to work. When I saw that photo of my private health info on my phone, my first reaction was fear, then absolute fury. I demanded to know why she'd do something so violating. She just laughed it off, telling me she was curious. Curious? I was so upset I snapped at her. How stupid can you be? You work in a clinic and don't know what HIPAA is? She just left me on read. No apology, no accountability. I assume she ran off to Bella, our mutual friend. When days passed with no real response, I blocked her. I couldn't risk my information like that, especially knowing her boyfriend rummages through her phone and laptop. I turned to Clara and Bella to vent and get some support. Clara, thank God, got it right away. She was as shocked as I was. She literally said she couldn't understand what Alice was thinking. But Bella loves nothing more than being a devil's advocate, and she's always had this strange snarky edge toward me. She insisted Alice only had good intentions, and was just being playful or trying to connect with me as a friend. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. That's not playful, that's criminal. I told Bella bluntly, this wasn't about connecting. A real friend would just reach out, talk, and ask for permission. Instead, Alice risked her job, committed a massive HIPAA violation, and possibly exposed all my private info to her loser boyfriend. I even pointed out, what if my SSN had been there? What if her boyfriend, who clearly doesn't care about boundaries, decided to take out credit cards in my name? A few days later, Bella wanted to hang out. I agreed, but told her up front that I'd blocked Alice and wanted to keep things separate. I told her, and Clara, they could keep their friendships with Alice, but I just wasn't comfortable seeing her. Bella totally iced me out, left me on read for days. When she did finally reply, it was this sorry if I hurt you non-apology, telling me I should have said something if I didn't want her opinion, and that our views are clearly just too different. The whole thing just reeked of her pushing the blame back onto me and refusing to take any responsibility. Meanwhile, Clara and I were supposed to hang out. She bailed the first day saying she picked up a shift, which was fine, life happens. But then she ghosted me again the second time we planned to meet. A few days later, she apologized, asking if I was free that weekend. I got suspicious and asked if she'd talked to Bella. She casually admitted she'd gone out with Bella the day Clara and I were supposed to be together. Bella even mentioned a jewelry stand in her apology, and sure enough, Clara confirmed they'd gone there. After Bella dropped Clara off, she texted her apology to me. That's when it hit me. I've been trying to spend time and keep some normalcy with both these friends, only to be ghosted and left behind. It feels like they got together to plot something. I wouldn't be surprised if they're planning some kind of intervention or ambush to try and make me forgive Alice. The trust I had in any of them is gone. I feel so hurt and betrayed. I've tried to be honest, to set boundaries for my own safety, but all I get is being iced out, ghosted, and apparently, guilt-tripped. Now I'm starting to wonder if this is the price I'm paying for just standing up for myself and expecting my friends to respect my privacy. Update 1. I was blindsided when I discovered that my best friend of 10 years, Alice, had used her work computer to look up my health insurance information. She snapped a photo of the screen with her phone and casually sent me the screenshot in a message, almost as if it were a funny meme and not a severe breach of my privacy. It stung even worse knowing that Alice works at a doctor's clinic and should absolutely know better. And to make matters worse, her boyfriend has constant access to her messages via the laptop he uses. Suddenly, the thought that he could easily stumble upon my personal health details made my skin crawl. When I confronted Alice, I braced myself for at least an ounce of remorse, something genuine. Instead, I was met with silence. No apology, no explanation, just an empty void where a friendship used to be. The realization hit hard, and, with no closure in sight, I blocked her. It felt like losing a limb. Desperate to make sense of it, I reached out to Bella, someone who always insists on seeing every side of every situation. Usually, Bella is the reliable devil's advocate in my life, which sometimes helps me see things more clearly. But this time, her reaction left me floored. She brushed off my hurt, saying Alice was just being playful and was only trying to connect with me. I felt like I was screaming into a void, my pain dismissed as an overreaction, my boundaries treated like nothing. I finally found some solace with Cassie. Unlike Bella, Cassie understood how utterly absurd and serious the situation was. She got it, why I felt violated and betrayed, why Alice's actions weren't just a prank. Cassie was the only one who really seemed to stand beside me. But just when I thought I found some ground to steady myself, everything slipped out from under me again. Cassie and I had plans to spend time together, something I was looking forward to more than I realized. Then, suddenly, she went out with Bella on one of those days we were supposed to hang out. After that night, Cassie vanished from my life, ghosting me with no warning, no explanation, just silence. Now I'm left feeling iced out from every direction, nursing wounds that go deeper than betrayal. I'm trying to make sense of it all, but mostly I'm just hurt and confused, wondering how my closest friendships unraveled so quickly, and if I ever really knew any of them at all. Update 2. I have been dealing with some pretty serious health issues lately, progressively getting worse with no real answers, and until recently, I hadn't been able to find a decent doctor to help me. I was scared, frustrated, and exhausted, just navigating endless phone calls and appointments, desperate for some clarity or relief. One day, something happened that added a whole new layer of confusion to everything. My friend Alice, who works at a medical office, decided to take matters into her own hands. Without asking me, she went and looked up my health insurance information. Then, she took a photo of it. That realization really threw me off. All those years of trusting her, and she just bypassed me entirely. When I confronted her and asked why she did that, she just texted back, "I was curious." I know, on some level, she probably had good intentions and was just trying to help. But still, she never had my permission to snoop around in my records or take a photo of my sensitive information. If she had only asked me before doing it, I would have immediately said no, not just for my own privacy, but because I would hate for her to jeopardize her job over me. The kicker is, if only she had talked to me first, I could have just told her that I'd already found a new doctor, all on my own. Now there's this other worry gnawing at me. Who did Alice send the photo to? As far as I know, she just sent it to me, but her boyfriend uses her laptop and basically has access to everything she owns. I never thought anything of it until he suddenly brought up my specific health concerns that I had confided only in Alice. That's when it hit me, he must have read our conversations, and, to make it worse, sometimes he sends messages from her phone or laptop pretending to be her. So there's a very real possibility that he saw that photo with all my private info. Thankfully, my social security number wasn't in the photo. I only asked, what if it was? Because that would have made everything so much more serious. But my name, address, birthday, and every bit of my health insurance information was right there, plain as day. I just can't shake the feeling that my trust was violated, even if she never meant to cause any harm. Update 3. After everything happened, I decided to file an official HIPAA complaint through the OCR website. The suggestion came up several times, and the more I thought about it, the more convinced I became that it was the right move. In the days that followed, I took a hard look at my friend group and realized that we'd all been drifting apart for quite some time, not just because of this one incident. Alice and I especially had been growing more distant even before any of this went down. Bella's resentment and subtle digs grew more obvious, but Cassie was the wild card. She and I had actually been getting closer. So, when she abruptly ghosted me too, I was left completely hurt and confused. One day Bella texted, inviting me to a group hangout with some of her friends and Cassie, but notably not Alice. My gut told me this was supposed to be some awkward intervention disguised as a casual hangout, maybe to fix things between Alice and I, but I couldn't be sure. I told Bella I appreciated the gesture but wasn't comfortable getting together. I made it clear I didn't like how certain things were handled or said, especially because she tried to shift the blame on me in a so-called apology text she'd sent beforehand. I explained that I needed space to sort through my feelings and reevaluate what I wanted in my friendships. I wished her a good time and told her to stay safe. She replied, wishing me the best, saying she'd be there if I ever needed anything, and promised to respect my need for distance. After that, I didn't reach out at all, but the entire situation stayed with me for weeks. It was like I couldn't shake the cloud that followed me everywhere. My sister-in-law eventually got fed up and asked me straight out why I couldn't just let it all go. That pushed me to take a serious look at myself, my reasoning, and the choices I'd made. Finally, I decided to do what I had been putting off. I put my big girl pants on and called the clinic. I got through to the manager, laid out exactly what had happened, and offered to send all the screenshots I had. Because the clinic was so small, they had to set up a new email just so I could send them everything. The next day, the clinic emailed me and said they would be starting their investigation days earlier than they'd initially planned, thanks to my report. Days passed, and then I received their final email. They thanked me for being brave enough to come forward and outline what they'd done. Alice was placed on leave while they reviewed logs for several days. She was ultimately brought in for an HR meeting, required to undergo HIPAA training, and the clinic put additional precautions in place to ensure something like this wouldn't happen again. I know this wasn't the dramatic outcome many people might expect. I did what I felt was right, what people suggested, but in the end, the clinic made its own decision. Deep down, I hope this was the wake-up call Alice needed. Since all of this, I haven't heard a word from Alice, Bella, or Cassie. My honest view is that Alice made a stupid, careless mistake that nearly cost her her job and destroyed our friendship. This wasn't a shock, she's always had a knack for making reckless decisions, never thinking about the fallout until it blew up in her face. As for her boyfriend, I don't know him well, but the things I've seen, and the red flags Alice herself told me about, never sat right with me. I never said anything to her about my concerns because that was just who she was, the kind of person who'd defend her relationship no matter what, eager to make excuses. I wouldn't have been the first friend she lost after starting to date this guy. When I wrote out all of this originally, it was 4 a.m. and I was shaking with anxiety at the thought of losing my closest friends of nearly a decade. I regret how messy and frantic that first account came out, full of venting and gossip when what mattered was what actually happened. I'm sorry for that. This update is proof that I've had time to reflect, and that I tried to handle everything this time with more maturity. Throughout this ordeal, the advice, support, and, even, the blunt criticism I received helped rally me into action. Some harsh words, like being called a doormat, made me rethink so much. It took time, but I finally called and now I have closure. All in all, this experience has pushed me to improve, not just as a person, but as a friend for those I'll meet in the future. Update 4. I honestly thought I was done with all this drama, but life had other plans. It's been about 3 months since I filed that HIPAA complaint and cut ties with Alice, Bella, and Cassie. I'd finally started to move on. New job, new routines, even started dating someone. Then last week, everything came crashing back in the most unexpected way. I was at Target, just minding my own business in the pharmacy section picking up my prescription, when I heard a familiar voice behind me. It was Cassie, but she wasn't alone. She was with some guy I'd never seen before, and they were clearly close. Really close. Like, inappropriately touching each other in public close. What struck me as weird was that this definitely wasn't her boyfriend of 2 years, Mark, who I'd met several times. She spotted me before I could escape, and the look on her face was pure panic. She quickly stepped away from the guy and walked over, acting like nothing had happened. "Hey. Oh my God, it's been forever," she said, way too cheerfully. The guy she was with looked confused and annoyed, muttering something about waiting in the car before leaving. We ended up talking for a few minutes, and it was so awkward. She kept asking about my health, if I'd found a good doctor, all these questions that felt way too personal given how she'd ghosted me. But here's the kicker, she mentioned that Alice had been going through a really rough time and that her relationship with her boyfriend had gotten complicated. I didn't want to seem too interested, but I couldn't help asking what she meant. Cassie got this weird look and said, "Well, you know how he was always using her stuff? Turns out he was doing more than just reading her messages." She paused, then added, "Alice found out he'd been talking to other girls. For months. Some of them. Using her accounts." My blood went cold. If he was messaging other people while pretending to be Alice, what else had he done? What if he'd used that photo of my health information somehow? Cassie must have seen the look on my face because she quickly said, "But I'm sure your stuff was fine. Alice would never let anything happen to your information." The conversation ended abruptly when the guy from before came back into the store looking impatient. Cassie made some excuse about having to go, but not before saying something that's been haunting me. "You know, Alice always said you were the smart one for cutting her off when you did. She wishes she'd listened to you about him." I've been a mess ever since. Part of me feels vindicated. I was right about her boyfriend being bad news. But another part of me feels sick thinking about what might have happened to my personal information while he had access to Alice's phone and laptop. I keep wondering if I should reach out to Alice, or if I should just let sleeping dogs lie. The worst part? I can't shake the feeling that Cassie was trying to tell me something more. The way she kept emphasizing certain words, the nervous energy, it felt like she wanted to say something but couldn't. And seeing her with that other guy while she's supposedly still with Mark. It makes me question everything I thought I knew about any of them. I never expected to care this much about people who hurt me so badly, but here I am, 3 months later, still getting pulled back into their drama. I thought blocking Alice would be the end of it, but it feels more like it was just the beginning of something much messier. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this information, or if I even want to know what really happened after I walked away. But I have this nagging feeling that the story isn't over, and that scares me more than I want to admit. Update 5. I wish I could say that running into Cassie at Target was the end of it, but apparently the universe had other plans. What happened next completely blindsided me and honestly makes me question everything I thought I knew about the past few months. 2 weeks after that awkward encounter, I got a text from an unknown number at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. The message just said, "We need to talk. It's about Alice and what really happened. Meet me at Riverside Park tomorrow at 2 p.m. if you want answers. Come alone." I stared at that text for probably 20 minutes. The only I could think of was Mark, Cassie's boyfriend. But why would he want to talk to me? We'd barely exchanged more than pleasantries in the past. Still, something about the urgency in that message made my stomach twist. Against my better judgment, I showed up. Mark was already there, sitting on a bench by the duck pond, and he looked awful. Like he hadn't slept in days. When he saw me, he stood up so fast he almost tripped. "Thank God you came," he said, running his hands through his hair. "I wasn't sure you would." "Mark, what is this about? And how did you get my number?" He looked around nervously before answering. Cassie had it saved in her phone. Look, I know this is weird, but I had to reach out. There's stuff you need to know. About Alice, about what her boyfriend was really doing, and about. He paused, his jaw tightening. About Cassie. My heart started racing. What about Cassie? She's been lying to you. To me. To everyone. His voice cracked a little. That guy you saw her with at Target? That wasn't some random hookup. She's been seeing him for months. Since before Alice's whole situation even happened. I felt like the ground was shifting under my feet. Mark, I'm sorry, but what does this have to do with me? With Alice? Because, he said, pulling out his phone, Alice's boyfriend wasn't the only one reading private messages. He showed me a screenshot of a text conversation. It was between Cassie and someone saved as Jay in her contacts. The messages made my blood run cold. Cassie, she filed the complaint. Alice is going to lose her job. Jay, good. Maybe now she'll learn to mind her own business. Cassie, I feel bad though. They were really close. Jay, don't. You said she was always judgy about relationships anyway. She probably would have tried to break us up if she knew about us. Cassie, true, and Mark is getting suspicious. We might need to cool it for a while after this. Jay, whatever. Just make sure she doesn't find out Alice was trying to help her. Help me? I looked up at Mark, confused. What does that mean? That's the part that's going to mess with your head, Mark said, sitting back down heavily. I've been putting pieces together for weeks. Alice didn't look up your insurance information because she was curious or nosy. He paused, like he was trying to figure out how to say something difficult. She found out her boyfriend had been stealing mail from your apartment building. Including some medical bills that had your insurance info on them. She was trying to figure out what he'd taken and if your identity had been compromised. She was going to tell you everything, but she panicked when you confronted her. I felt like I'd been hit by a truck. That can't be right. It gets worse, Mark continued. Cassie knew. She knew Alice was trying to protect you, and she let you file the complaint anyway. She even encouraged you to do it because she was scared you'd start asking questions about why Alice's boyfriend had your mail in the first place. Why would she care about that? Mark's expression darkened. Because Cassie's boyfriend, the guy you saw her with, he's Alice's boyfriend's roommate. They've been running some kind of mail theft scheme together, taking packages, bills, anything with personal info they could use or sell. The park started spinning around me. All those months of feeling betrayed, of thinking Alice had violated my trust, and she'd actually been trying to help me? Where is Alice now? I asked quietly. She quit her job before they could fire her. She's been staying with her aunt upstate, trying to figure out what to do. Her boyfriend cleaned out her bank account and disappeared about a month ago. Took her car too. I couldn't speak. The guilt was overwhelming. Look, Mark said, standing up, I don't know if any of this changes things for you. But I thought you deserved to know the truth. Alice never blamed you for the complaint. She said she understood why you did it, and that she should have been honest from the beginning. Why are you telling me this now? I managed to ask. Because I'm done being lied to, he said bitterly. And because Alice asked me to. She's been trying to work up the courage to reach out to you herself, but she's scared you hate her. After he left, I sat on that bench for 2 hours, trying to process everything. The worst part wasn't just learning that I'd been wrong about Alice. It was realizing how easily I'd been manipulated by people I thought cared about me. Cassie had orchestrated the whole thing. She'd isolated Alice from me, convinced me to file the complaint, and then ghosted me to avoid dealing with the fallout, all to protect her affair and her boyfriend's criminal activities. I drove straight home and did something I never thought I'd do. I unblocked Alice's number and sent her a simple message, "Can we talk?" Her response came back in less than a minute, "I've been waiting for you to ask. We're meeting tomorrow. I don't know if we can fix 10 years of friendship after everything that's happened, but I owe it to both of us to try. And I owe her an apology that's about 6 months overdue." As for Cassie and her boyfriend? I'm debating whether to report the mail theft. Part of me wants to let karma handle it, but another part of me knows there are probably other victims who deserve justice. I never thought I'd say this, but I miss having Alice in my life. Even with all the chaos and drama, she was the one person who was actually trying to look out for me when it mattered most. I just hope it's not too late to make things right. Update 6. I met Alice yesterday at a quiet coffee shop about halfway between where we both live now. Seeing her after all these months was surreal. She looked tired, older somehow, but there was something in her eyes I hadn't seen in years. Relief, maybe? Or just the absence of that constant anxiety she used to carry when she was with her ex. We talked for 3 hours straight. She told me everything, how she'd found my mail mixed in with her boyfriend's stuff, how she'd panicked and used her work computer to verify what information he'd potentially stolen, how she'd wanted to call me immediately but was scared I'd blame her for dating someone so reckless. When I asked why she didn't just explain all this when I confronted her, she broke down. "Because I knew you'd ask me to leave him," she said, crying into her coffee. And I wasn't ready to admit that everyone was right about him. I thought if I could just handle it quietly, fix things without drama, maybe I could prove that I wasn't as stupid as everyone thought I was. The conversation took an unexpected turn when she mentioned something that made my stomach drop. She said that about a week before her ex disappeared with her money and car, he'd gotten a call that made him panic. Someone had apparently threatened to expose his side business unless he paid them $5,000. Alice said she'd never seen him so scared. "I think someone was blackmailing him," she said quietly. "And I think I know who." That's when she dropped the bombshell. "Remember how Mark told me about Cassie's affair partner being Alice's ex-boyfriend's roommate? Well, according to Alice, there was a falling out between them right before everything imploded. Her ex had apparently caught Cassie's boyfriend skimming money from their mail theft operation and threatened to turn him in. What if, Alice said, Cassie's boyfriend decided to get rid of the evidence by getting rid of mine? The more we talked, the more pieces started falling into place. The timing of when Alice's ex disappeared. The way Cassie had been so eager to help me file the complaint. Even that weird encounter at Target. What if Cassie had been there intentionally? What if she knew I'd be picking up my prescription that day? Alice pulled out her phone and showed me something that made my blood run cold. It was a screenshot she'd taken of her ex's browser history before he left. She said she'd been documenting everything in case she needed it, for insurance claims. One of the searches was for my full name and address, dated just 2 days before she'd looked up my insurance information. "He wasn't just stealing random mail," Alice said. "He was targeting you specifically. I think he knew we were friends." As we were leaving, Alice grabbed my arm. "There's something else. I've been getting weird calls from unknown numbers for the past month. Always at night, always hang-ups when I answer. And last week, someone left a note on my aunt's car that just said stop talking. We decided to go to the police together next week." Alice still has all the evidence she'd been collecting about her ex, and I have all the screenshots from the Cassie situation. But honestly, I'm scared. If we're right about what's been happening, then this goes way beyond a simple HIPAA violation or even mail theft. The scariest part is that I keep thinking about that night I got Mark's text. What if someone knew he was planning to tell me the truth? What if they're watching to see what we do next? Alice and I are going to try to rebuild our friendship, but right now, we're more focused on staying safe. She's staying with her aunt for a few more weeks, and I've been extra careful about checking my mail and looking over my shoulder. I never thought a simple friendship drama would turn into something that feels like a crime thriller, but here we are. Tomorrow I'm changing all my passwords and checking my credit report again. And I'm definitely not meeting any more mysterious people in parks anytime soon. The worst part? I can't shake the feeling that we're still missing something big. Something that explains why all of this happened in the first place, and why certain people were so determined to keep Alice and me apart. I guess I'll find out soon enough.